Welcome back to Market Monday on Monday, November 10th. It is the first Monday after the next gen event release, in which we saw our first line combination dropped that will get to 99 overall. We're just under 2 weeks away from Season 2, so it is the final event before we see everything essentially reset and we get a whole new ton of collections and definitely market implications once Season 2 rolls over. So definitely curious to see how things are impacted over the next 2 weeks leading up to the season reset, and then what happens when the season ticks over. So we start with icons like always. There's far fewer on the auction house this week. We had 84 total last week, now down to 68. As, again, we are getting to the end of Season 1. It does look like we'll get a whole new batch of higher overall icons when Season 2 drops, but as it stands right now, we've still got 68 remaining from Season 1. And what's interesting is the cheapest up is 90,000. That's what it was last week, but it does look like they are starting to creep up just a little bit. Very interested to see how this price is impacted, since we know that 87s to make Lindros required an 86 overall icon, so one could assume that the next batch of icons is going to require icons to trade in, but very interested to see how that is impacted. If that's the case, these will probably go up far in price. Now, when it comes to Sergei Fedorov, he was about 105,000 last week, and as you can go through, there are a few just under that, but he is not selling for 97,000 coins by now. Still one of the best cards in the game. However, the best line combination he can fit, I believe, is +3 overall. So I'm hoping that maybe we get a Detroit Red Wing or Icon line combination at the start of Season 2, because Fedorov's card is one of the best in the game. He just has never fit a line combination that would allow him to be that much better. Teemu Selanne, again, taking advantage of that big Finn edition for the Beast Mode event, where you could pair him with Barkov or Bedard or anyone else really from the Blackhawks that would give you a +5 or +6 overall boost. And again, there is one up for 100,000 and 95,000, but the majority are around 110 to 120,000. Solani's still one of the best cards in the game, so he is kind of sitting around that 115,000 coin mark. Well, we saw a massive defenseman drop in NHL 26, and it has impacted Paul Coffey, who normally wasn't on the auction house, and if he was only going for about 220,000, or he was going for about 220,000. He's now under 200,000 coins, because, you know, again, we're getting to that point of the season where there are better options in terms of line combinations, but still one of the best cards in the game. Definitely a card I would recommend you guys make if you can. He's been a phenomenal card start to finish. Joe Thornton, man, he went all the way up to like 150,000, then down to 100,000. Now he's like 95, right around the lowest amount for icons, all because in the Beast Mode event, there was multiple Shark Shark line combinations you could utilize. But again, as you can see, as we get more line combinations, the event goes along, you see those cards that skyrocket in price, they always come back down pretty heavily. And then lastly, Eric Lindros. You could have got one last week for 225,000. There's one up for 233, but he has been one of the best cards in the game, and definitely a card you should try and make. And again, I'm very curious to see what happens for Season 2. I don't know if we'll get all 87 overall icons or if we'll get 88s. And if it's 88s, you're probably going to have to trade in 87s, and there was only 3 made, so I have no idea how that's going to work at all. Now, making those icons, starting with Eric Lindros, the 84 to 85 overall Alumni. These are down to 31,000 for an 84 overall Alumni. Again, a pretty crazy drop-off. Last week, they were 35,000. Again, it's just not very new or popular to make icons currently. And with the, crash since Lindros came out, there are other cards that you could get, like Barkov, for example, that's a little bit easier than making all of the icons and whatnot to get Lindros, but this is a massive discount from what it was when Lindros dropped. I mean, when Lindros dropped, he was like 50, 60,000 coins for an 84 overall Alumni. It was wild. When taking a look at the 82 to 83 overall Alumni to make an 84, these are going for roughly the same price as they were last week. They were 10,000 per for an 82 or 83. You're now seeing 10,000 coins for them this week. And then lastly, you've got the 81 to 82 overall Alumni trade-in. These have actually gone up in price all the way up to 8,500. They're up 1,000 coins per from the 7,500 they were last week. Heroes back down to only 21 available on the marketplace. And we saw a big change, I mean, specifically with Gilmore, who was probably one of the least sought-after ones on the market, but with a +9 overall boost using Doug Gilmore, you're seeing his price skyrocket. But last week, there was actually 33 on the auction house, only 21 now. Again, these just don't seem to be pulled. They're only 84 to 86 overall, but there must be a crazy weight to them where they just don't get pulled in packs. The cheapest up right now is just under 50,000 coins. It was actually 45 last week, so 5,000 per for this week. Not enough to actually move the needle. It's just that there's so few up on the auction house. Now, the cheapest Alumni set, the 79 to 80 overall Alumni set. These have stayed the same price as they were last week. These have actually come down about 1,500 coins. You can get one for 5,000 coins per right now. So a very cheap barrier of entry into the Alumni. It's not a good value, but they are about 1,500 coins cheaper for whatever reason. And actually, as I say that, the reason would be is that 78 and 79s are not usable as they were used in the Beast Mode event set specifically to make the MSP, so that makes sense. The last week, we're going to highlight these in terms of the Faceoff event items. Again, these were the biggest risers during this event because of the first ever +6 availability. Ricard Raquel, even just last week, was going for 85,000 coins. You can now get one for 60,000, just under. Again, like 200,000 coins when this card first came out. Matthew Nyes, 110,000 last week. He's now under 70,000. So you can build that +6 line from the Faceoff event for a massive discount in comparison to when these cards first came out. But again, I just want to note that because these were one of the first cards that, when it comes to line combos getting out of control or ramping up substantially near the end of a season, we saw just a massive price influx for these cards specifically, only for 3 weeks later for them to drop off by almost 90% or 80%. Man, who remembers base Jack Eichel going for like 250 to 300,000 coins? Even last week, 77,000 coins. His star of the month came out. That is technically buildable. And as we've seen, the base card or a lower overall card of a player that can be built drops his price substantially, all the way down to 35,000. For anyone that chased that line combination, specifically with the base Jack Eichel, if you didn't get out early, like, you lost 200,000, maybe more coins. Just crazy volatility. Now, the Beast Mode event has come and gone. There really wasn't many cards specifically that weren't the MSPs that were really sought after, especially with the Star of the Month release that released a ton of Team of the Week line combos, as well as the Next Gen event. But I wanted to take a look at the 78 and 79 overalls just in general, because these prices spiked through the roof because you needed specifically 78 and 79 overall cards. And as you can see, 78 overalls were going for 3,000 coins per. They've dropped all the way down to 2,000 coins to grab a 78 overall. And what's even funnier, 79 overalls were going for 5,500. They're not even needed for an event, so now they're 2,000 coins. That's crazy. Again, the volatility week to week is nuts. Now, the Next Gen event has raised the barrier of entry. So 80 overalls last week were going for 6,000 coins per. And now you're going to have to spend 8,000 to get an 80 or an 81 overall. Both of these 80 and 81s last week were going for 6,000. So now they're 2,000 coins more now when the next event that is kicked over, where the barrier of entry has now gone up to 80 to 81. Now, we also got Star of the Month, which operates so much different than what we anticipated because it requires 83 overall Team of the Week player items as the barrier of entry, which myself included, no one predicted. And what's crazy to me is that while the event requires you to get 83 overall Team of the Week items for that Jack Eichel, unfortunately, this is what 83s were going for last week. I really don't understand this one. Like, they were going for the same price to make Malkin in the prior week. The only thing I can think of is that, yeah, I have no idea as to why they are still the same price. Obviously, Jack Eichel's card was nothing crazy, but it still surprises me that the card required is an 83 overall Team of the Week. Very specific, and they did go up in price when it dropped to like almost 44,000 coins, but now they've dropped all the way back to, you can get one for 24,000. That's 3,000 coins less than what we had last week. So it's pretty crazy. Even though the new card comes out, if it is not a dynamite locked in top tier card, I mean, people are just not going to be interested. That's crazy. Now, I just want to highlight some base cards like we always do. We'll do our weekly check-in of Connor McDavid. As I start, I still follow him from start to finish for the first few months just because I want to see if there's any crazy drop again. And 65,000 coins is roughly what he's going for. Now, last week, he did get around 70 to 80,000 coins, but this is kind of just hanging right around there. It's 60 to 70,000 coins for Connor McDavid. And I don't think it's going to change with Season 2 because unless we can't use our Captain Season 1 version, which might have a massive impact, but there's no confirmation you won't be able to use Season 1 Captains. I do want to clock this week's meta base card or lower overall card to check out because Nick Suzuki's card was going for, peanuts or whatever the base for 84 overalls are now. You're seeing the cheapest up for 83,000. His card can be combined with, I believe, Demidov and Snuggerud to get a +7 overall, and I believe it's 20 million to the salary cap. So again, once these line combos reset, you're probably going to see Nick Suzuki go back down to a base of 84 overall. So we'll check again next week what this card comes out to once we get all the new line combos and everything like that. But 83,000 is the cheapest that we're seeing Nick Suzuki up for. Fantasy cards, we're down to 34 total on the auction house. I think that a lot of people either have the card they want, or they just are trying to offload the same lower overall ones. A lot of people have just sold their one random one for 2 million coins and kind of gotten out of the game because fantasy event this year, obviously there was all that, kind of drama surrounding it and how difficult it was to get the card you wanted. But even just a lot of the cards have not performed to that crazy extent. We usually get a few like Andre Burakovsky, I believe is up to an 89. He is absolutely electric, but there hasn't been that 99 early on. But again, Burakovsky could be that one. We're really starting to see some people try and get out of certain cards like Jamie Benn up for just over 500,000 coins. And I believe there is a Timothy Liljegren who is up for 522. I try to tell you guys that he just doesn't get utilized in the way that's going to produce a lot of goals. Anyone can luck into one because you're on the ice technically. But a lot of these people that were paying 1 million for them, just no way, it's just fantasy cards, again, with how they were made, just not really something to chase after this year. But how can we do Market Monday for this episode without clocking Landon Dupont? So again, I want to mark this down so future me remembers. There wasn't a card that came out, Landon Dupont, who is limited, only available in packs. However, they made the pack 40% odds in the store to pull him. Tons of people ripped the pack, and he also can get up to 99 overall for these next 2 weeks. So his price typically absolutely exploded. And currently 175,000 coins is the cheapest for Landon Dupont. Very curious to see how his price reacts once we get through the next release of next-gen cards. We're probably going to get another 88 overall. And then specifically what this card goes to when all of the line combos reset and we kick off Season 2. And then the last thing, we always ended on the total cards on the auction house. And I'm assuming because everyone bought those packs for Landon Dupont, it's raised the total amount of cards on the auction house all the way back up another 1,000 to 12,400. Last week, it was down to the lowest I've seen it all year round, and that was 11,457. So I'm assuming that extra 1,000, those Landon Dupont packs probably have a lot to do with it. That's going to do it for this episode of Market Monday. I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.